Stone, you're a history buff. That's one thing that I've always known about you is your American history, you know
Right.
pop culture, you know all these things. Do you know who Jim Jones is?
No.
All right. So I'm gonna take you
That's a
down.
pretty basic name, though. But
It is a basic name, but there's one Jim Jones, and it has to do with this topic right here, the Kool-Aid. Jim Jones, I'm going to take you on a little bit of a history tour. Okay. Grew up right up the road, 50 minutes north of here, in Richmond, Indiana. He was a charismatic leader of a cult known as the People's Temple. At one point, he was getting a lot of scrutiny. I'm talking directly to you, Stone. Yeah. He's getting a lot of scrutiny for his religion, for his church, that he left the United States and started a commune down in Guyana. I believe that's how you pronounce that country's name, in South America, northern South America. Started a little commune there for a couple of years. Some reports started coming out that it wasn't so great down there. It wasn't a paradise like Jim Jones had described. And what happened? A congressman goes down there and hell breaks loose. They kill the congressman. They start killing these people that want to get out of this commune. And it ends up with Jim Jones, this little man from Richmond, Indiana, gave cyanide-laced Kool-Aid to his disciples or his practitioners, and they all died. About 900 of them died down there in Guyana. And the reason I tell you this, and that's where the phrase is, don't drink the Kool-Aid. Now,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's the story. It happened about 40 years ago in 1907. The reason I tell you that is because we're here in town. And the reason I don't want to believe, it was so easy, and I mentioned this, we've already talked about this, for the 2 weeks before I went down to Fort Myers, Florida, and went on a little vacation, and now I'm back, a lot of things have happened. They lost to the Patriots, they beat the Ravens in their most dominant win, their best win that they've looked, the best game that they've played all year, maybe the best game that they've played in the last 2 years. And it's very easy, now all the national pundits are talking about, Joe Burrow's back. The Steelers are bad. Lamar Jackson doesn't look right. This Bengals team, the same way that they won their last 5 games of the year last year, can do it again this year, win the AFC North, and march through the playoffs like they did 4 and 5 years ago. And I'm not buying into it. The reason I'm not buying into it is because even though every bit of my fandom, every bit of Reed Mouse as a Cincinnati Bengals fan, as a Joe Burrow fan that has defended Joe and Zach Taylor and Duke Tobin and Lou Anarumo and fought tooth and nail on this show for years now, and I've been more negative this year than I have in years past, and the reason is because I'm watching the games. And yeah, they played their best game of the year on Thanksgiving. 5 turnovers from the defense. They're playing better. Joe Burrow's back, and the offense looks right as rain. And yeah, Lamar Jackson doesn't look like multiple-time MVP Lamar Jackson. In fact, he looks to be maybe he certainly is a worse. He's certainly not a top 5 quarterback in this league anymore the way he's currently playing. And yeah, Mike Tomlin, there's chance up at Heinz Field or whatever it's called there in Pittsburgh, they want to fire their head coach because the Steelers don't even look to be good. Not a team that can win the AFC. They don't even look to be a good team. Do I believe that the way these current AFC North teams look, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Baltimore Ravens, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and even the Cleveland Browns, do I believe that for the rest of this month into December, these final 5 games that the Cincinnati Bengals are going to play? Do I believe that the Cincinnati Bengals are going to be the best team in the AFC North? I do believe that. I do think that they will play better this month than the Baltimore Ravens will. I do believe that they'll play better this month than the Pittsburgh Steelers will. And I think they'll play better than the Cleveland Browns will. But everything I've seen from this team this year is shown me that the margin for error is so small. On the defense, certainly, but even at times on the offense. Joe Flacco for 2 games looks unstoppable. Then he goes back, and I get he was hurt. And Joe Burrow is margins, tiers better than Joe Flacco, 40-year-old Joe Flacco. But even the margin for success on this offense at times is somewhat thin. And when the margins are thin and you're playing the Buffalo Bills, who are fighting for a playoff spot, when you're playing the Baltimore Ravens, and I get we just beat them, who are playing for a playoff spot, and you're playing the Miami Dolphins, who look a little peskier, and you have all these games over the next few weeks. There's nothing that I've seen from this team through the first 12 games that has me to strongly believe that they can run the table. It's what they've shown in the Joe Burrow era, in the Zach Taylor era, that when it gets cold here in Cincinnati, this team plays better than pretty much any team in the league. I don't have the stats, but you can look it up. Joe Burrow's record in December and January is pretty unbelievable. And it's part of the reason that in years prior we were okay, or at least I was okay, with slow starts, because I understood that when this team gets rolling, when this train starts moving down the tracks, that they will be one of the best teams in the league. And as long as they don't dig themselves too big of a hole, they can climb out of it. But I'm here to tell you that the hole is just too deep. Joe Burrow as a ladder is not tall enough to dig you out of this hole. They are 7-point underdogs this week going up to Buffalo. They will be underdogs, or at least they won't be. It won't be a field goal favorite. I don't know what the spread will be next Sunday at home against the Baltimore Ravens. I think a lot has to be shown this Sunday against the Bills. But to run the gamut and win the last 6 games of the year, I'm just not buying into it. I guess I'm shielding myself here. I'm not buying into this team. Once again, hey, this team's all the way back. And I've done this before. When they beat the Steelers, with Joe Flacco, I said, I'm on board. Win every game. I'm here for it. And then what did they do? They lost to the New York Jets. They lost to the Chicago Bears. In embarrassing fashion both ways. Then they lose to the Steelers again. And everything that we've seen, they lose to the New England Patriots. 1-7 when Joe Burrow is gone. And as great as Joe Burrow is, they're 3-0 when he starts. He's just not tall enough of a ladder to dig the Bengals out of the hole that they can. They win this week. They beat the Ravens. I'll sit here and I'll be playing a different tune. But right now on, December 3rd, in the year of our Lord 2025, I ain't drinking the Kool-Aid that is the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow. And at 4-8, they're going to run the gamut and win the AFC North, regardless of how bad the AFC North looks. Regardless of the opportunities that they hold, and they can define their own destiny, if they can just win out. And boy, would it be special if they win out. Go 8-0 with Joe Burrow as your starting quarterback. Would be one of the most miraculous seasons that you can imagine as a fan. But I ain't buying in. Stone, is that too easy of a layup of a take to not buy into this Bengals team when they go for these final 5 weeks, these 6 weeks? Because everything I've seen, everything they've showed me over the 8 weeks that Joe Burrow wasn't here, was that this team has too thin of margins. This team practically, it isn't good on the defensive side. They are playing better. And even on the offensive side, the margins are too thin. I still have major questions about the coaching. Am I being too harsh, I guess is what I'm saying at this point.
No, look, it's important to make your layups, and I think, this is probably a layup to say that we can't just go out here and think that the Bengals are going to run the table. Definitely. If they win Sunday, maybe I come in here on Monday and have a bit of a different tune. But I think for now, it's one good game. That's the first time we're sitting here on December 3rd, and it's the first time all year they've put together a full football game. Even the couple of games they won early, I wasn't a complete football game, and obviously the games they were losing weren't complete football games either. So after one game to say they're going to make the playoffs is extreme, but with 9 and how he played against Baltimore on Thanksgiving, I think there should be some optimism, and with the defense obviously figuring some things out. But is there, optimism or confidence maybe that this should continue? Probably not. But, we'll watch Sunday. We'll see what team shows out there. And if they put another quality performance out there, obviously no room for error. Even if it's a good performance and they lose, well, that's not good enough. But if they put a good performance together and win, I think maybe we can have a bit of a different conversation next week. But I agree. We need to see this one more time before we get carried away here.
Yeah. And to your credit, we're Cincinnati Bengals fans. We're not New England Patriots fans. We're not Kansas City Chiefs fans. We're not Green Bay Packers fans. We're not San Francisco 49er fans that have had decades on top of decades, and even the Pittsburgh Steelers have had decades on top of decades of success. So maybe we shouldn't grade the same way, and we don't grade the same way that they grade their season successes, and we should take game by game. And, when the Bengals win, at the end of the day, we're fans, that's what we should root for. And you should take it more in stride about you beat a division rival, a team you hate in the Baltimore Ravens, and kind of dominate them on national television, on Thanksgiving, win the first Thanksgiving game in franchise history. And Joe Burrow's back, and it's feeling like, hey, this is good times. We shouldn't take these for granted. But I watched that game on the couch, and for some reason, as happy as I was when it was happening, the game ends, and all I could think about was, why couldn't we beat the Jets? Why couldn't we finish that game against the Chicago Bears? Why did we look so god-awful against the Minnesota Vikings, who aren't very good? Why couldn't we win one other game along the way? Why did we have to run Jake Browning out there for 3 weeks? And why did we have to run a hobbled Joe Flacco out there for 2 weeks? Like, why are we in this situation at all? And that's what's frustrating. As happy as that feeling was of dominating the Baltimore Ravens, as quickly as that went away, all I could think about, and maybe it's just getting older, I'm getting a little more negative, seeing the world in a different light. I try to be this positive guy, and I think I am, more often than not. But I just couldn't help but think, why couldn't we beat the Jets? To where instead of at 4-8, sitting at 5-7 in a much more doable game, or even beat the Steelers and knock them down a peg, or win those 2 games at home between the Bears and the Jets. Whatever it is, it's just so frustrating that the 8 weeks that Joe Burrow was gone, they couldn't muster up more than a win. And I said it 2 weeks ago. I'll say it again. If you ask the most pessimistic Bengals fan, one far more pessimistic than I'm being right now, when Joe Burrow got down, hey, how many wins do you think the Bengals will get over the next 8 weeks? Not even he would have said just one. He would have said, 2-6, 3-5. To where, at the end of this 8-week period, they'll be 5-5. Nope, 1-7. 3-8 when Joe Burrow come back. But season's still alive. Bengals are being talked about in the national media, which is something that for some reason we care about here in town. And it's because of 9. He can dig you out of a lot of holes. I'm just afraid that he can't dig us out of this one.